Hold on. Let me teach you how to play Groot in the new hero shooter, Marvel Rivals. Okay, so this is Groot. More than likely one of the best tanks in the game currently, potentially an S tier rank tank. The reason being, survivability, decent movement, and some range. Groot can stay in the fight for a very long time with his main mechanic, his walls. Thorn Lash and Ironwood walls that do both attack and heal him over time. Paired up with his synergy ability with both Groot and Jeff the Landshark, Groot can stay in the fight for a very, very long time and deal massive damage either in a wide area or one-on-one. Like I said, Groot's main mechanic is his wood walls. His first, on a controller, L1, Thorn Lash Wall, targets a location and grows a Thorn Lash Wall. When awakened, it strikes nearby enemies attacked by Groot and his allies. L1, we pop a Thorn Lash Wall. One thing to note is that Groot's wood walls will not activate unless Groot is in the near vicinity of those walls. How do we know that Groot is in the vicinity of those walls? Watch the 15-meter mark as we walk up. You see how the wood wall then activates, foliage at the top and some vines? That means that that wood wall is in the vicinity of Groot and will attack an enemy thus far. We initiate attack, and the wood wall attacks the mob as well. A good way to play his wood wall mechanic, a lot of times you can either block off an enemy or split an enemy in two. The lash wall only does attacking in your direct vicinity. Think of the wood walls as kind of like a minion that only does damage in your vicinity. Placing that wood wall right behind an enemy cuts them off from their backline and does damage to them as well. Now on to Groot's second mechanic, his Ironwood Wall. Ironwood walls target a location and grow an Ironwood Wall. When the wall is awakened, damage dealt by Groot and allies grants bonus health. Now, one good way to use the wood wall is, again, I like to split enemies between them. And see how I'm getting bonus health as I attack enemies? We can see that the wood wall is activated by these glowing lights every time we hit a target. Now, this health doesn't only spread to myself, it also spreads to my allies as well. One good thing to know is that you have one charge of the wood wall and 2 charges of the Thorn Lash Wall. You can also come up to the wall itself and press circle to retrieve it. So again, just to go over, your Ironwood Wall heals you, and your Thorn Lash Wall, which has 2 charges, does damage for you. Using your walls to section off enemies is a great way to pull them away from the pack and also do damage to single or multiple targets in an area. See how I could split these two? And it'll do damage to both as I attack them. One thing to note is that this also works for allies in the vicinity as well. So when allies hit targets with walls in the area, they will also do damage and also do health to those enemies as well. So Groot's main attack is Vine Strike. Vine Strike is a ranged attack, but it doesn't have infinite range. 25 meters is the cutoff. 20 meters, and we can accurately hit 250 enemies for about 4 hits. There's no damage difference from body to head. Groot has 8 of these vines until it has to reload. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then reload. Again, the distance is about 20 meters or so. At 25, you really can't. It really won't go. It looks like it goes that long, but it doesn't. It's the same damage between chest and or head. So body and head are the same damage. So it doesn't really matter where you hit them, just as long as you do hit them. Our next attack is a spore bomb. Throw an explosive spore bomb that splits into multiple exploding spores. This is pretty awesome because you can hit multiple targets at once. There really isn't any range drawback. You can toss this from pretty much anywhere as long as you angle it properly. And there's no damage difference depending from how far you throw it. It doesn't do a lot of instance damage. I like to use the spore bomb as a end to my combo. So I like to go 3 vine shots and then throw the bomb. 1, 2, 3. That way I can also get an AoE kind of spores hit on the end of that as a finish. And then I'm also not using as much of my 8 charges from my vines. Our next attack is, believe it or not, Groot also has a melee. It's kind of covers all his bases here. It's a 3-hit combo, so at the end of that combo, it will pop them in the air. So I'll show you now. 1, 2, 3, and they do go up in the air. Okay, our next and final attack is Groot's ult, Strangling Prison. Fire a massive vine cluster that pulls enemies to its center and imprisons them. This is a good way of setting up big damage for your team when you pull enemies closer for them to be able to strike them as is. So I'll show you now. Let's strike this enemy. This ult is a good way of doing upfront damage, initial damage, and also pulling in enemies closer so that way your other heroes can also do big damaging attacks as well. Let me show you here. See how I pulled them closer and it's also doing damage over time? It got really pretty low, so you can do big damage to a lot of enemies and also have your other team members do big damage as well. So it's really good. Tips and tricks of how to play Groot. Like I said, a lot of times I like to split enemies this way with his vine wall, so that way I can attack enemies on either side. I also like to place walls right behind them so that way they can't move to their mid or back line. And a 4 shot becomes a 3 shot. We can have 3 of these walls put up at a time, just to note. So a lot of times I like to set up like this. Be mindful of where you're placing walls to. These walls are bigger, so if you put a wall right in front to stop off an enemy from attacking another, you have to be mindful that someone is attacking them. So if you're placing a wall in front of a mob, be sure that you're doing it for the right reason so that way you're not breaking line of sight for other heroes. I like to do 2 things with the ironwood wall. I most likely like to place it so that way it's same thing, splitting characters, or it's behind them so I'm doing damage to both, or I'm getting health back from both. Then my ult, I like to see where our enemies are in a pact, and it can go a pretty decent distance to pull them in, and then I also like to attack while that ult is going on. So while I have my ult, I do like to attack them as I'm doing damage over time, because it'll quickly take an enemy out. So that was Groot in a nutshell. Let's go into a match so that way I can show you how to play him during a match.
Trapping all those fighting souls, but yet across the world I see you standing in my way. And remember the time, the place we used to fight, like the sun and moon. And I wonder if ever there was a time that we were friends. The night has fallen and shadows looming, and yes, that time has come for me to seek you out. We are set now for our last reunion. Break the chains, find your way, come fight me.
and this is how to play Groot in Marvel Rivals.